this Saturday. It's a pretty good card, man. A lot of people are pretty down on it early, but when you really look at all the fights, there's a lot of great performances that are ready to show. We have 15 total fights on this card. It's a full card, man. Some guys missed weight. William Knight missed weight by what, 12 pounds? He weighed 218 for the 205-pound weight class. And Alex Perez missed weight by 2 pounds. He weighed 128 for the 125-pound weight class. But overall, the card is pretty solid, and we have a lot of New Zealand fighters on here. A lot of guys who are related to Adesanya. The first fight on the entire card is going to be insane. Blood Diamond's making his UFC debut against Jeremiah Wells. That's going to be super explosive. Carlos Ulberg versus Fabio Charant is going to be insane as well. Alexander Hernandez versus Renato Moicano. Ronnie Lawrence is on the card. He's a great prospect. If the fight stays together, William Knight versus Maxime Grishin is going to be something to watch. Casey O'Neal's on the card. She's a great prospect as well. Going up against the veteran, the pioneer of women's MMA, Roxanne Modafferi, who's still doing it, man. Speaking of old-time vets, we have Andrei Arlovski on the card. Bobby Green versus Nasrat Haqparast is going to be insane. Kyler Phillips is on the card. And then, of course, the last 3 fights are really going to carry this. Jared Cannonier versus Derrick Brunson is a very important fight for that middleweight division. Whoever wins that might be next in line to fight the winner of the main event. Derek Lewis versus Tuivasa is going to be insane as well. Knockout waiting to happen. And, of course, the chess match. The 2 best fighters from the Oceania region, Israel Adesanya versus Robert Whittaker. The rematch is going to commence, and there's a lot of things for specifically Robert Whittaker to prove in that one. With all that to the side, the prospect of the night, I believe, is Ronnie Lawrence. A lot of people probably pick Blood Diamond or even Carlos Ulberg, but Ronnie Lawrence is a well-rounded fighter. He's good at everything he does. He's good at wrestling, good at jiu-jitsu, good power with his hands. He's very crafty and tough if he has to show it. He's younger than some of those guys as well, 29 years old. He has a pretty bright future moving ahead. The fighter of the night is, of course, going to be Israel Adesanya, the champ. He's creating a whole legacy for himself, trying to become the greatest middleweight of all time and trying to overlap everybody in this division. The banger of the night, the most explosive fight, I believe, is going to be that first one, man. Jeremiah Wells versus Blood Diamond. Blood Diamond is a technical kickboxer, but he's extremely powerful. He's very slick with a lot of things he does out there. I mean, the kicks that he's able to throw up after throwing punches, you don't normally see that kind of thing besides if you watch Wonderboy Thompson. And Jeremiah Wells is a powerhouse. He's explosive with his takedowns, so we do know he's going to go that route here. He doesn't want to strike too much with Blood Diamond. If he does, that's going to be something crazy to watch. The fight of the night, in my opinion, is Bobby Green versus Nasrat Haqparast. This has the making to be somewhat of a technical fight, but also extremely fun. Bobby Green is fantastic in a lot of things he does. Being offensive as a striker, his defense is pretty solid. Nasrat has insane power with his left hand. Bobby Green might wrestle in this fight a little bit, but he doesn't necessarily have to. Ultimately, man, there's a lot of adjustments these 2 guys are going to probably have to make inside of that fight, and it's going to make for an excellent technical, yet barn burner of a fight, man. And finally, the stake of the night, the guy who is in hot waters a bit, is Robert Whittaker. If he loses this one, that's it for title shots. The path back to Israel Adesanya is going to be an extremely long one. He has to make things work on Saturday in order to continue his career and further his legacy without being in Israel's shadow. And with all that, we're going to go right to the first fight. Bobby Green versus Nasrat Haqparast. This is a making of an interesting fight because, number one, Bobby Green, of course, is the more well-rounded fighter. He's a better wrestler. He's better at scrambling. He's a better overall technical striker. Whereas Nasrat is going to have the power advantage and might have the speed advantage, especially with his hands. The ability to get off the center line against an orthodox Bobby Green is going to be extremely useful to land that left overhand. Bobby Green, though, switches constantly. He goes from orthodox to southpaw and vice versa very seamlessly. And it's really how he stands. If you notice Bobby Green's stance, it's almost parallel, but his feet are very narrow together. He never really has a wide stance. He gets square to his opponent, and that makes it seamless for him to switch between stances. It could potentially take off power from some of his blows, but it ultimately helps his defense against certain kind of strikers, specifically someone who likes to take off the outside foot. Against orthodox fighters and land the left hand, Bobby Green's shift from orthodox to southpaw is going to be extremely effective for him to get away from any of those left hands and ultimately bait Nasrat into a trap. Bobby's counters are extremely good. We saw that against Ally Quinta in the last fight. I mean, Ally Quinta's a hard guy to put down, and Green was able to counter him with a smooth cross and put that guy down. If he's able to pull back on Nasrat's left hand and land some of those counter shots, this could potentially be over before you know it. But for Nasrat, he has to go to leg kicks. 100%. If Green is switching to southpaw, Nasrat has to chop down on that leg, and he has to attack the body as well. Don't just go for headshots. Green is a hard guy to hit sometimes. His Philly shell shoulder rolling, pulling on punches, and switching up stances can make for a very complex target to hit. Nasrat has to differentiate where he hits here. Legs and body should come first, headshot follows afterward. This means feinting with the right hand to get Bobby Green to move, whatever reaction he gives. Nasrat could potentially go to the body with the left instead of going up top, or he could throw the leg kick instead if Green starts switching. All of this is going to chip away at Green until the headshot comes. But ultimately, my prediction for this fight, I'm going to have to go with Bobby Green in this one. He has so many paths to victory here. He seems to be the sharper striker overall and definitely the better wrestler. If he starts to wrestle Nasrat, that's going to take away a lot of what Nasrat is presenting offensively. And through that, he could chip away at Nasrat in the clinch against the fence. So ultimately, I'm going to go with Bobby Green, and I'm going to go by a decision victory. And then we go to Jared Cannonier versus Derrick Brunson, one of the pure strikers of the middleweight division versus the best wrestler of the middleweight division. And they both have insane amount of power, man. One shot and either of these guys can go down. I think Cannonier has a better chin, and I believe he does hit harder, even though Brunson is one of the hardest hitters in this division. And this is going to be an orthodox versus southpaw matchup, so you know how the right hand and left hand of each fighter is going to play out. Brunson, probably not going to stay on the feet too long. It wouldn't be smart for him to do so. But if it is on the feet, he's going to try to drill in that left straight into a double leg. Cannonier is going to try to counter him with uppercuts like he caught Jack Hermanson. Hermanson shot him for a takedown, and he ate an uppercut from Cannonier. A lot of people believe that Cannonier is an easy guy to wrestle, but the way he defends that is by landing his fist on your chin. That's his takedown defense. His timing is impeccable. He even dropped Robert Whittaker of all people, who could be pretty hard to hit at times. And we know how fast Whittaker is on blitzing from a distance. Derrick Brunson's going to be a lot easier to hit. He lifts his chin up when he moves forward. He throws a left straight or something like that. Cannonier is definitely going to be able to counter him. Or even Cannonier pushing Derrick Brunson backwards. That's going to give Brunson a lot of trouble as well. I mean, the right hand from a distance is going to be extremely effective for Cannonier. And the leg kicks could be something that might work. It could get him taken down. But we know Cannonier has some powerful leg kicks, man. He finished Anderson Silva with a leg kick, and it was not the leg that got injured. He destroyed Jack Hermanson's legs as well. So there's a lot of power coming from Cannonier here. He can make anything happen. But ultimately, man, the wrestling from Derrick Brunson is so strong. It's so efficient. He doesn't necessarily have to finish you off. He just easily wins on the scorecards. Look how he just beat Darren Till, Kevin Holland, and Edmund Shabazian. All these young guys got dominated by Derrick Brunson. The only things that are going to allow Cannonier to stop the takedowns, number one, he shows to be too physically strong. Remember, this guy came down from heavyweight and he carried the power with him. Number two, he catches Derrick Brunson on his way in. Those are the only two things I could really see from Cannonier: stopping the takedown and winning on the feet. As long as this fight stays on the feet, Cannonier has a massive advantage. If Derrick Brunson can get this to the ground, Cannonier is going to be in a lot of trouble. So it could potentially be a hard fight to really figure out when it comes to that. I mean, because Cannonier doesn't have the best takedown defense, but the way he can defend it correlates to him ending the fight. So my prediction here, I'm going to go with Jared Cannonier, and I'm going to go by a second round knockout. I can see through his strength, him be able to get up from the bottom. The fact that it's not a 5-round fight is going to allow him to explode more. And ultimately, as long as it stands on the feet, I just see Cannonier catching him every single time. Either it's going to be a jab, a right cross, a hook, an uppercut against the takedown. Leg is going to be damaging. The damage from Cannonier, I believe, is either going to win on the scorecards or it's going to cause a knockout. So Jared Cannonier, second round knockout, but this is a hard fight to predict. And then we go to the co-main event, the knockout that's just waiting to happen. Derrick Lewis versus Tai Tuivasa. The knockout ratio for these guys are: Derrick Lewis has 81%, Tai Tuivasa has 92%. It's rare for these guys to go to a decision, but I would have to say that the guy who has more brute power is definitely Derrick Lewis, whereas Tai Tuivasa is a lot faster and it's harder to see his shots. The big problem I see in the fight right away when I just look at it, Tai Tuivasa coming in and Derrick Lewis countering. I just always see this happening when I picture the fight, because Tuivasa at times could be somewhat defenseless moving in. He's a little bit too headstrong on his offense. And Derrick Lewis is a sharp counterpuncher, man. As powerful as he is, his precision with his right hand, the confidence he has in that punch is terrifying. I believe it's scarier than the amount of power that he has, because when he throws it, he's always able to land it. I mean, look at the way he knocked out Travis Brown, the way he knocked out Curtis Blades. I mean, on the back foot, he's able to knock out these guys effortlessly. But Tai Tuivasa is definitely going to be the faster fighter. The leg kicks are going to be important for him, getting away from the clinch and kind of trying to fight in mid-range here. Not too close, not too far away, because Lewis has a major reach advantage. And from the clinch, Lewis is just way too strong, man. The way he was able to knock out Martin Tibura disengaging is something that everybody has to take notice here. So ultimately, my prediction for this fight, I'm going to go with Derrick Lewis. It's a tough fight to call. Tuivasa is the faster guy. If he fights smart, he probably has a better chance of winning here. If he just tries to go for the knockout and tries to live up to the hype of the fight, Derrick Lewis is probably going to win this. And ultimately, I'm going to go with Derrick Lewis, and I'm going to go by a first round knockout. And then we finally go to the main event, Israel Adesanya versus Robert Whittaker 2. I talked about this fight many times already. I gave the way that Whittaker could potentially win this. Ultimately, man, he has to fight perfectly. He cannot make a mistake. And in every Whittaker fight, he gets dropped, he gets hurt. Against Adesanya, with the power that he has, the precision in his shots, how fast he is, one shot, just like the first one, can put Whittaker down. Whittaker has to play this like a chess match. He cannot go out there trying to knock out Adesanya with every given shot. Every time he threw the right overhand, he got timed and then eventually countered for it. But what were the shots that were landing for him? The jab, the round leg kicks, no side kicks to the knee. Adesanya has that down, man. Jabs were catching him, and round leg kicks were catching him. The jabs specifically were so fast that Adesanya even himself wasn't able to react to them that well. Whittaker is so fast to explode from a distance, he has to close it a little bit more than before. I mean, he was so far out there when he fought Adesanya the first time. He needs to walk him down a little bit more instead of just blitzing from a distance. The blitzing is definitely going to have to be there because that's just his style. But walking Adesanya down more is going to allow him to get a little bit closer to him, so he doesn't have to explode from such a far distance and make it easier for Adesanya to see him. One of the biggest things for Whittaker to go to that he didn't go for the first fight were body shots. Adesanya is always leaning away from headshots. So if Whittaker just feints up high, gets Adesanya to react and lean away, it's a natural opening for the body. Whenever you lean back, you even tried this at home, just lean back like someone's throwing a punch at your head, your body's always open. And that can allow Whittaker to start ripping body hooks, body uppercuts, body jabs to be a little bit safer, or even kicks if he's able to time it correctly. Now this creates more wrinkles in the game for Adesanya to start to read. Not only headshots that Whittaker is used to throwing, he's always throwing head or leg strikes. The only times you ever see him throw body shots are like push kicks. But if you mix up the body with the head and leg shots, combined with that blitzing speed from Whittaker, he can make a lot of things work now. And takedowns. Everybody's talking about the wrestling. It's hard for me to see Whittaker taking Adesanya to the ground, to be honest here, because when you look at guys like Derrick Brunson trying to take him down, Marvin Vettori trying to take him down, Romero trying to take him down, he's defending all of them, man. He's so good against the fence to defend takedowns because of how long he is. In open space, Whittaker's able to get that double leg, but it's gonna be risky, man. If he's really working to get the fight to the ground, he might expend a little bit too much energy to do that, as well as it ultimately failing on him. The best thing from the wrestling for Whittaker is just to mix it up, break Adesanya's rhythm with it, and ultimately disengaging from the takedown attempt is gonna reset Whittaker closer to Adesanya. The closer Whittaker is, the better his chances are going to be. But here's the thing, man, all of these have to work perfectly together. If one thing breaks apart from this entire game plan, Adesanya might knock him out. Because here's the thing, man, Whittaker can run into punches, specifically Adesanya's jab, and if Whittaker ever swings over an overhand right, he's always there to get countered every single time. And if Whittaker wants to stay from a distance, tries to be a bit slower in the fight and just like stick out in the distance a little bit more to find his openings, he's gonna get kicked from a distance, man. He's gonna get jabbed in the face, kicked to the body, kicked to the legs, and Whittaker's gonna have to act. If that starts to play out like that, I can only see Whittaker being a little bit more eager to get in close and get away from all this pot shotting. Then I can see the explosive punches coming out there and stuff like that. Adesanya countering him again. The fight can be hard to predict when you start to think that Whittaker fights perfectly. If he puts together the perfect game plan and goes to it by a T, mixing up the attacks of the body, head, and legs, going to takedowns to offset Adesanya, focusing more on body shots than head shots, I honestly would favor Whittaker to win this. If he fights this way, I would actually give him almost a 60% chance here. But the way that it's most probable it will play out, given the fact that, Whittaker in every fight eventually runs into some big punch, and if he stays from a distance, he's going to get picked apart. He explodes for headshots, he's going to get countered. My prediction for this fight, I'm going to go with Adesanya, and I'm going to go by a 4th round TKO. Adesanya is actually a massive favorite in the fight. He's almost a 3-1 favorite. I do not agree with that. Even though he beat Whittaker pretty soundly in the first one, Whittaker did not fight the way he usually fights. And number 2, Whittaker with the adjustments makes the fight a lot more competitive in my opinion. It might make the fight a lot more of a chess match than anything else. I definitely do not agree with a 3-1 favorite, but ultimately, the best place to go and bet on this fight is mybookie.ag. With Adesanya being such a big favorite, a lot of people are picking Whittaker in this one. Those are the best lines to go to if you're a Whittaker fan or you believe he's going to win. MyBookie is probably the best place to actually go because I believe they have Whittaker as the biggest underdog. And the interesting about the props are, according to MyBookie betting odds, they believe the fight is going to go to a decision more than anything else. If you believe Adesanya is going to win by a knockout or Whittaker is going to win by a knockout, MyBookie actually has the better odds for those as well. But there's some other interesting odds here. For example, for those who believe in Blood Diamond, there was a lot of noise when he came into the UFC. He's a massive underdog. He's a plus 205 against a minus 245 Jeremiah Wells. I believe the reason for that is Wells goes for takedowns. People don't know how good Blood Diamond's wrestling is at all. On the feet, Blood Diamond is more tactical. He's better technically, so it could be interesting on the feet, but ultimately, Jeremiah Wells with the takedowns could bring it to his side. So those odds actually are quite risky, but rewarding as well. The lines here are pretty exaggerated, and those are some of the best opportunities for anybody who's going to bet on the fights. The bigger the underdog for a fighter that people think is going to win, the bigger the reward is going to be, and ultimately parlays are another option. I personally like doing parlays. For me, those are some of my biggest earnings. Of course, you never want to go too crazy on a parlay because that's the way you can multiply your earnings, and if you want to pick as many fighters as possible, something I like to do sometimes for fun, and just put on like $5 or something maybe, you never really know how much you can win. And with this, if you sign up with mybookie.ag today, you get the deposit bonus. MyBookie will match up double your first deposit all the way up to $1,000. Put in $50, now you have $100. Put in $10, now you have $20. It's a great bonus to take advantage of. All you have to do is use the promo code WEASEL to activate this offer. That's promo code WEASLE. And also going with all of this, every year there's a Super Bowl as well. This is the first time I've actually watched football because we had that long hiatus between fights, and I was getting a bit interested about the build up to the playoffs. I happened to watch it with some friends. I actually found it pretty interesting. I never really cared too much about football, but this is the first Super Bowl I'm actually watching. I believe the Bengals are going to win. Some people are saying the Rams, but it should be a good game. And if you're looking to bet on the Super Bowl, MyBookie has over 2,000 props to bet on, which is a lot. There's so many things you could bet on here, from players performing a certain way to total touchdowns in the entire game. If someone's going to make a field goal in the fourth quarter, I mean, it gets super specific. There's so many opportunities and options here. Remember, just go to mybookie.ag to get the deposit bonus. And if you're someone who likes to bet, get on these betting lines, man. And ultimately, that's the end of the prediction video, guys. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. I cannot wait for this Saturday. Can't wait for this Sunday as well. And I'll see you guys in the next video.